Good to have you back, tennis lovers. We are currently hovering on the precipice of what is universally acclaimed as the most magnificent stop on the calendar, excluding the four majors. I am referring, of course, to the BNP Paribas Open, out in the desert of Indian Wells, California. If you are fresh to the circuit, allow me to set the stage. This place is not just a competition. It is a literal utopia for the sport. And honestly, that is not hype, it is a fact. Tucked away in the breathtaking Coachella Valley, with the San Jacinto peaks looming overhead, this venue is a sanctuary of high-end luxury, cutting-edge tech, and athletic brilliance. We have Larry Ellison to thank for transforming what was once a dying desert meet into a structural and digital wonder. From the gargantuan Stadium 1 to the cozy yet high-energy Stadium 2, complete with fine dining, to the massive, sprawling grounds, where the air feels thick with excitement, status, and the faint scent of jasmine blooms, this is the ultimate dream stage. It is the trophy every pro craves, and the bucket list trip every supporter fantasizes about booking. People call it the fifth Grand Slam for a reason, and the roster for this year, absolutely dazzling. You have Novak Djokovic, mocking the concept of aging in his pursuit of perfection. Then the young titans, Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, poised to fuel the rivalry defining this new era. For the women, we have the reigning champ, Mira Andreeva, the sheer brute force of Aryna Sabalenka, the strategic genius of Iga Świątek, and America's own darling, Coco Gauff. These are the Leviathans, the icons plastered 10 feet high on the roadside billboards all along Interstate 10, the superstars who put butts in seats. But hold on, because today, we are flipping the script. The narrative actually vibrating through the locker rooms, the headline stealing the thunder at this year's Sunshine Double, is something else entirely. 20-year-old Alexandra Eala is emerging as the main character here at the BNP Paribas Open. Just absorb that for a second. A newcomer stealing the shine at an event historically reserved for the legends. And right this moment, deep in Southern California, the entire community is tracking her every step. A 20-year-old native of Quezon City is snapping necks and dominating the news cycle at a venue overflowing with major champions and former number ones. To really understand the scale of this ascent, we have to rewind and examine how Alexandra Eala has completely overhauled the script for modern enthusiasts. Only days ago, Eala smashed her personal best, landing at a historic world ranking of 31 on the WTA Tour. Leaping 16 spots in one go is practically unheard of. That was not a climb. It was a rocket launch, fueled by an incredible performance in Dubai, easily one of the most punishing and prestigious stops on the 1,000-level circuit. Out in the Emirates, Eala took apart higher-ranked opponents with the ice-cold nerves of a seasoned pro. She tore through the bracket with precision and violence until she ran into world number 4, Coco Gauff, in the quarterfinals. Even though that match ended her week, the 215 ranking points and the nearly $100,000 in prize money launched her straight into the aristocracy of the women's game. Sitting at number 31 in the world is more than just a statistic. It is a golden key, a history-making milestone. Eala is now the highest-ranked Filipino tennis player ever, across both tours, and that status changes her entire reality at Indian Wells. She walks right into the main event, skipping the brutal qualifying gauntlet entirely. She earns a first-round bye, which buys her precious recovery time, a chance to get used to the dry desert air, and a moment to strategize. Eala is no longer the underdog crashing the party. She is sitting at the head of the table, and the buzz is palpable. So why is she the main attraction in California right now? It is a collision of freakish ability, a great backstory, and an exploding global fanbase. Let us break down the actual game. If you have slept on Alexandra Eala for the last 12 months, you have missed one of the most exciting transformations in the sport. In 2025, she shocked everyone with a giant-killing run to the Miami Open semis, knocking out 3 former Slam champs, Elena Rybakina, Madison Keys, and the formidable Iga Świątek. That was no accident. It was a masterclass in mental toughness, tactics, and raw skill. A flare shot into the sky, announcing a new power player. She proved her heavy, lefty forehand and ironclad two-hander can boss around the absolute best hitters on earth. She grabbed her first WTA 125 trophy in Guadalajara and logged a massive victory over Clara Towson at the US Open. Eala has graduated from being a junior phenom and former junior world number 2 into a genuine, terrifying threat on the main tour. But the hype is about more than just ball striking. It is her psychological armor, which became legendary a few weeks back in Abu Dhabi. Up against the veteran Alexandra Sasnovich, Eala looked dead in the water. She lost the opener, fought to take the second, and then stared down a 0-4 hole in the decider. In the pros, Trailing by 4 games in the final set against an experienced rival is usually the time you start packing your bags. Most players would have crumbled, but Eala stood tall. Summoning a level of grit that seemed impossible for a 20-year-old, she fought her way back from the abyss, erasing match points and shattering her opponent's composure to clinch victory in a brutal 2-hour, 51-minute war of attrition. Addressing the crowd, moments later, she turned to the legions of Filipino supporters and spoke in Tagalog, a raw, emotional tribute to the sheer courage and inner fire that fueled her survival. That genuine spirit, that absolute refusal to wave the white flag, is mesmerizing. It is the reason the entire tennis world is fixated on Eala every time she steps between the lines. Then there is the X factor propelling her to stardom in California, the massive cultural wave she is riding. Southern California boasts one of the most energetic and populous Filipino-American communities on the planet. For generations, Filipino sports culture revolved around the boxing ring and the legendary fights of Manny Pacquiao, or the basketball court. However, Eala has single-handedly carved out a massive territory for tennis within the collective heart of the global Filipino community. What is unfolding at Indian Wells is nothing short of a cultural invasion. The diaspora is on the move. In the same way fans used to flood Las Vegas for a Pacquiao bout, they are now jamming Interstate 10, heading to the desert with flags, noise, and unbridled passion to witness Alexandra Eala. They are completely upending the stiff, polite atmosphere of this country club sport, turning the venue into a loud, electric festival of national pride. Officials are reporting a massive spike in demand for tickets. The practice courts are overflowing with spectators the moment she picks up a racket, and streaming viewership across Southeast Asia is shattering all previous benchmarks. She isn't just an athlete, she is a revolution, the living embodiment of a nation's athletic dreams manifesting on the most glamorous stage in the world. In this breakdown, we are going to deconstruct exactly how Alexandra Eala forged a game capable of dismantling the sport's elite. We will analyze the tactical genius imprinted by her coaching team, the grueling years at the Rafael Nadal Academy, and what this specific moment in the California desert signifies for the WTA's future, the financial landscape of tennis marketing, and the evolving face of Asian representation in the sport. Strap in. The Alexandra Eala era has officially touched down in the desert, and believe me, this is a show you cannot afford to ignore. To truly grasp why she has the California crowds in the palm of her hand, we have to strip her game down to its studs. Making the leap from a celebrated junior prospect to a bona fide professional is one of the deadliest transitions in athletics. The road is paved with prodigies who never made it. The shots are heavier, the error margins are microscopic, the isolation is intense, and the mental pressure is relentless. Yet, Eala has navigated this minefield with a cold, surgical precision. A huge part of her rise, and the bedrock of her current form, is her long-term development at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. Watching Eala is like watching a fusion of Southeast Asian quickness and the grinding philosophy of Spanish clay. The Nadal Academy does not just teach you how to hit a ball. It teaches you how to suffer, how to wait, and how to build a point, brick by brick. It drills into you the power of heavy topspin and the suffocating effect of forcing your rival to hit just one extra shot. Under Joan Bosch's tutelage, Eala has absorbed this dogma into her bones. Being a lefty gives her an instant strategic edge on the women's tour. The natural kick of her cross-court forehand jumps high into a right-hander's backhand, a pattern Rafael Nadal has used to torture opponents for 30 years. But do not mistake Eala for a mere defensive backboard. Over the past 24 months, and especially heading into her explosive 2025 campaign, she has morphed into a lethal all-court predator. She is fusing power, placement, and court IQ in a way that is rare to see. Eala has injected serious velocity into her ground strokes. She has flattened out her backhand down the line, turning what used to be a shield into a sword that ends rallies instantly. Her serve, once considered a weak link, has been sharpened into a precise instrument. On the ad side, she utilizes that lefty slice to pull opponents off the court, opening up the geometry for a crushing forehand winner on the very next ball. It is a high-level first-strike tactic masked by her calm, understated presence. However, biomechanics alone do not make you the headliner at a WTA 1000 tournament. It is the ability to execute those mechanics when your heart is pounding out of your chest that separates the good from the legends. We have to look back at that clash in Abu Dhabi against Sasnovich. It is the master key to understanding Eala's current rise. Trailing 0-4 in the final set, 99% of players switch into panic mode. The inner voice changes from, "How do I win?" to "How do I survive?" Errors start to pile up, But when Eala's opponent double-faulted, routine forehands started drifting long, and that was the signal Eala smelled blood in the water. She cranked up the aggression, ripping a stunning backhand winner to break back at 5-3, and instantly, the stadium's energy completely turned. That kind of mid-match psychological reset is a superpower, a rare trait usually reserved for legends like Novak Djokovic or Serena Williams. To see a 20-year-old display that level of emotional ice is nothing short of mind-blowing. It's exactly that flair for the dramatic, the guarantee that she's never dead until the final point that makes her the hottest ticket at Indian Wells. Let's be honest, fans aren't buying tickets just to watch a polite tennis clinic. They want a brawl, a gladiator match, and Eala brings that theater every time. But let's zoom out from the baseline to the boardroom. The WTA is a massive global enterprise, and like any corporation, it's always hunting for emerging markets and bankable superstars. This sport runs on compelling storylines, fierce rivalries, and conquering new demographics. Asia has been the target for years, with a massive boom in China led by trailblazers like Li Na. But Eala? She isn't just a prodigy with a racket. She's a cultural force and a marketing dream, uniting a diaspora and aggressively expanding the global footprint of women's tennis. We witnessed the commercial juggernaut of Naomi Osaka, who fused high fashion, activism, and raw power to build a global empire. Alexandra Eala represents the absolute next frontier for the tour. You're looking at the Philippines, a nation of over 115 million people who are obsessed with sports and live on social media. Add to that a global diaspora of 12 million strong, heavily concentrated in wealthy markets across North America and the Middle East. When she plays in Dubai, the arena feels like Manila. In California, the Indian Wells Garden morphs into her own backyard. For organizers and sponsors, that kind of loyalty is a literal goldmine. The BNP Paribas Open is already a commercial giant. But with a headliner like Eala, merchandise vanishes, concession sales explode as fans flood in for practice sessions, and Southeast Asian broadcast rights hit the stratosphere. Global heavyweights partnering with the WTA, from Morgan Stanley to the PIF, see in Eala an articulate, bilingual workhorse capable of unlocking a massive, untouched consumer base. We are watching the Manny Pacquiao effect play out on the tennis court. Pacquiao didn't just attract boxing fans. He united a nation. Crime rates literally dropped to zero during his fights because the entire country was glued to the screen. Tennis is a harder sell in a basketball-crazed nation, sure, but Ella's historic rise to world number 31 and her habit of slaying giants have smashed through the mainstream barrier. She is front-page news, trending globally, and carrying the heavy weight of national pride. Yet somehow, she has the shoulders to carry it all. The hype is real. The ranking is locked. Her seed is secured. Eala is in the final 32, resting up while unseeded players grind through the brutal opening rounds. That rest is critical because the conditions at Indian Wells are notoriously tricky. Between the dry desert heat and the high-bouncing courts, preparation isn't just helpful, it's everything. The ball screams through the thin air, but the gritty court grabs it, slowing the pace and kicking the ball aggressively high. These conditions are tailor-made for Alexandra Eala, giving her that extra split second to wind up her heavy topspin forehand. Forged on the slow red clay of Spain, she's perfectly at home in a long war of attrition. Her lefty spin becomes a nightmare here, especially for opponents with one-handed backhands or anyone who hates handling balls above shoulder height. But the road to a WTA 1000 title is never paved with gold. Even with a protected seed, Eala is barreling toward a collision with the sport's absolute titans. A potential rematch with Coco Gauff, who just edged her out in Dubai, promises a blockbuster showdown under the lights of Stadium 1. Gauff's supernatural movement and ironclad defense will clash beautifully with Ella's structured, heavy artillery. Victory will demand laser-precise serving and the sheer courage to charge the net and finish points, rather than letting Gauff drag the match into a relentless baseline swamp. Facing powerhouses like Aryna Sabalenka or Elena Rybakina, the challenge flips completely. These aggressive hitters strike with enough pace to knock the racket out of your hand. Eala must slice, disrupt the rhythm, and refuse to feed them the waist-high balls they love to crush. But here is the beautiful reality of the 2026 WTA Tour. The gap between world number 1 and world number 31 has never been thinner. When Eala finds her rhythm and that laser focus kicks in, she becomes a giant slayer, capable of dismantling anyone on earth. She made believers out of them in Miami, and she did it again in Abu Dhabi. The days of flying under the radar are dead and gone. She is no longer a sleeper pick. She is a verified, terrifying threat. To put it plainly, seeing Alexandra Eala command the spotlight at the BNP Paribas Open isn't just a lucky break or a shocking twist of fate. It is the destiny she carved out through years of brutal dedication, strategic mastery, and a spirit that simply refuses to shatter. We are witnessing the explosive metamorphosis of a gifted prodigy into an absolute juggernaut of the sport. She has surged to a career-high ranking of 31, obliterated national history books, and staked her claim as a lethal contender in the game's biggest arenas. The era of Alexandra Eala has officially dawned, and the tennis landscape in the desert will never be the same again.